Pacers free agency this year looking pretty settled, but what does it mean for next year? Well, a lot of interesting stuff. The Pacers' finances and team building suggest a very interesting year is coming, and we're going to explain why you should expect a move or a hard decision from the Pacers in the next 12 months. Yossi Goslin joins us on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Thursday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today, an episode that I am really excited about because I've been looking forward to talking about this with somebody for a long time. I think it's a very important thing for fans to understand about the next year, 18 months or so of Pacers basketball, and that is why they are in a situation that puts them in a spot they're going to need to probably make a move or hard decision roster-wise in the next 12 to 18 months. And Yossi Goslin, who runs capsheets.com and has his own YouTube page dedicated to salary cap analysis, will help break it all down, and we'll explain everything from how they got to this point, why they're going to have to probably make a hard decision, what they should do about it. Some estimating contracts for future players next year summer is going to be absolutely fascinating for the Pacers. Bookkeeping note, it is really late already, Eastern time. USA-Canada is going to tip off pretty soon. If something eventful happens in that game between Haliburton and Nembhard, I will have a show about it tomorrow. If not, tomorrow's going to be all about Summer League because they start playing on Friday. So lots of good stuff coming on international basketball next week, most likely, assuming there's nothing crushing or devastating that happens in USA-Canada. Nembhard did make the Olympic team officially. Congrats to him. But on that note, let's talk some future of Pacers team building with Yossi Goslin. Pacers are pretty much done with 2024-25 free agency. Maybe they can fit in a minimum guy. That's not relevant to what we're talking about today. What's relevant today is that they have set themselves up for a very interesting next 12 months of team building and financial balance. And who better to help break that down than the guy that I check my own cap work with, the best cap guy out there right now. Capsheets.com is the best. His YouTube page is fantastic. It's Yossi Goslin. How are you doing, man? Are you hanging in there from Summer League? And I have a question. What was your favorite contract of this offseason?
So no Summer League, so I'm going to get the cool down at home. And my favorite contract, I really like what the Warriors did, just giving out normal contracts to like good players.
What?
Like Haywood Highsmith, that's a good contract. Like Caleb Martin, like why aren't these teams trying to get those types of guys? Like those are all amazing contracts. Holy crap, they're not making that much.
Yeah, DeAnthony Melton being the only guy I think to get the full MLE, even for 1 year, is like, dude, he's good. Like, it's crazy to me. My favorite contract is Jonathan Isaac's, just because it doesn't make sense for either the Magic or Jonathan Isaac to me. But I guess in that way it does make some sense. It's very
well. That one's cool just because like it's
mechanically
an NFL contract. Like it's not guaranteed after like halfway.
Yeah, it's odd. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Okay, so we're talking about the Pacers free agency next year, and I will explain why we are doing that in a second. But I have to ask you a baseline question before we get into that, and that is, this summer, the Pacers re-signed Siakam, they re-signed Obi Toppin, and they signed James Wiseman. That's it. Would you have done all of those moves as the Pacers did? Like, did you think any of those were too rich? Do you feel like they went too long, or do you feel like they're all fair? Because that is an important first step to talking about next year.
So let's start with Siakam, which I think we knew it was going to be max level money. They probably signed up for that when they made that trade. And, when Shams first tweeted the night before that the Pacers were very close to getting Siakam, he said, "Oh, they're going to trade 3 first-round picks." I'm like, ooh, oh, man, that is a lot for him. But then it's like, oh, it's these 2 middling first rounders in this upcoming draft that just passed, and then one more in 20. Okay, you know what? That's actually like I would do that. Yeah, that's without a question. So as far as the contract, like we knew it was going to be max level money. I think the whole question was the years, and they managed to get it on 4 years. It's interesting. Pascal Siakam might be the first player in history to get 2 4-year maxes. He did it with the Raptors. He did it again with the Pacers. So no options there, but I think getting it just 4 years, he's like, he's deceivingly older. I think he's like already 28, 29, something like that, right? Am I right?
He's 30.
Or maybe 30? Okay, yeah, exactly. That's exactly my point. He's deceivingly older than you would think. So to get him on just 4 years, I think that's good if you're going to pay him max level money. Now, Obi Toppin, so I did my Pacers video, like, right after they got eliminated. I basically said, yeah, bring back Siakam, bring back Toppin. And that's basically the contract I imagine he'd get, just mid-level money, but just like a tad bit more. And that's what he got. And I think that bringing him back was better than anyone they could have realistically gotten in free agency. And then they were just going to have minimum signings along the way afterwards, which they started with James Wiseman. They're probably not going to use the mid-level at all. And there's no one really even out there that's worth using it on. So, yeah, they'll probably this seems like it'll be the roster that they have. They already have 14 guys filled out. Maybe they could do some other, like, maybe they get a different veteran if they need maybe they cut someone like Kendall Brown if needed, or they just bring back James Johnson for that 15 spot.
Yeah, they can fit in another vet man, especially if it's non-guaranteed, and then figure out how far they want to be from the tax throughout the season. So the point you just made is important, because all the contracts they signed this summer, I would have done if I'm running the Pacers. I with Siakam, I said I bet he either does a 2+1 or 5 years. So I had the same thinking as you. 4 was surprising. I'm happy with that if I'm the Pacers, right? I said the same as you with Toppin. I guess 3 for 45, about mid-level money. 4 for 60 is the same. So I can't, like, none of the contracts they've signed are bad. And on their team right now, I mean, do they have a bad salary? They have no, air quotes on this, dumpable, just like get rid of this, salaries. So I bring all these points up to say they still have too many players, because next year they're going to run into the first summer of potentially a few in a row where they have to consider either not bringing someone back or making a trade or a sign and trade before it starts, because I don't know exactly what tax estimate number you're using for next year, Yossi, and I've been talking about this on a couple of my podcasts. But if you just have, right, Haliburton, Siakam, Toppin, Nesmith, Mathurin, Jarris Walker, and Ben Shepherd with contracts next year for the Pacers. So they declined Nembhard to make him restricted. No Kendall Brown, no James Wiseman, and then free agency for Jackson, McConnell, and Turner. That all makes sense to me. That's $136.7 million in contracts. So 51-ish million from the tax, with 8 players and no money for 3 good rotation players. They can't afford all that. And the tax is coming. The answer could be just pay the tax, but you know this, and a lot of cat people do. The money coming from Boston and Phoenix is a lot, a lot of money potentially for some other teams. So good luck telling any ownership group of any team, hey, you pay the tax, you lose all this. So I would guess they would probably try to stay under. And so now they're in a weird spot where they have no salaries because of the guys they just signed on good deals. They have no salaries that are just like obvious dump candidates. They have young players that are good and ascending they would like to keep, but are probably, slotted in differently in their head salary-wise. They have vets who are good and contribute to a conference finals team, and yet it's hard to keep that all in. And that doesn't even account for any other additions they have during the season, any extensions they may sign. No first-round pick. They have their 25 pick included in that salary. I don't know how they're going to do this. And I think it's a very fascinating plot for the next, let's say, 12 to 18 months of Pacers team building.
Yeah, this is something I've definitely been thinking about as well, because they're going to have to make some type of sacrifice, and we don't know exactly how it's going to be. And I think it's a good problem to have, that they have like enough talent now, but that they all need to get paid. But there is going to have to, like, this exact core we have right now with, do the Pacers have a 14 or 15 man, 14-man roster right now? Like,
14 right now, yeah.
They have a certain like top 9, 10-ish guys like that are clearly in the rotation. I would think at least 2 of those guys are not going to be a part of it in 25-26. Wow. And they're going to have to figure out who it's going to come from, because when you got 2 max players making 30% of the max and 30% of the cap max, and then you've got some other very like high mid-tier salaried guys like your other starters like Myles Turner, it starts to add up really quickly.
It does. And the other hard part of, air quotes again, solving this problem, because I agree with you, it's a good problem to have, but the word problem is still a part of that for a reason, is like, you can't just, like, they're expiring contracts. You can't really do anything with them to stay good and have it make sense in the future. Like, you can't just trade Myles Turner for a different expiring contract. You'll be worse, right? And then does that actually make sense to do? Same kind of thing with McConnell. Maybe that could be something, but they've talked a lot about extending him this summer. Like Isaiah Jackson is, I guess, in that way, the most disposable expiring contract. But what are you bringing back with a $4 million salary match that even matters? Is that even worth it? Do they have another center who can play if they don't have Isaiah Jackson? So the instant, most obvious problem solves for teams usually in this spot, the expiring contracts don't make a lot of sense. And so then you have to think about stacking two guys, consolidation trades, but then you're still bringing back money, most likely. So I have a lot of trouble like coming up with the trade too. And team, even really good teams, just want to have a guy walk out the door, right, and lose them for nothing. So I don't know that that'd be how the Pacers want to operate. It almost seems like, and we can go through permutations or randomness of this in a second, but like it almost seems like the answer is, 2 or 3 players for a much cheaper player, but that's hard to do in practice in a way that makes sense given that they're good and they just made the conference finals.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you want to kind of, so you were talking about them being like 30-ish or so below the tax. So I've got them including their draft, like an estimate for their draft pick next year with 12 players under contract, 40 mil below the luxury tax line, which is about.
Who are your 12 if you include the pick, if you don't mind?
So it's Tyrese, Pascal, Obi, Neesmith, Mathurin, Jarris, the pick, Shepard, Wiseman, Kendall Brown, Nembhard, and Furphy. Now, caveat. And maybe we could start here. Maybe
Nembhard. I have no Nembhard money because of restricted free agency.
But either way, it's a very small amount. So let's just start with Nembhard then, because he will be extension eligible, I believe, on the July 22nd, I want to say.
Yep, that's
July
right.
22nd. And it seems, I don't know if it's an inevitability. You can tell me what you think, that they're going to offer him a max extension that would have him decline that $2 million team option and start him at like $18 million, just so they could lock him down on what could be less than what he would probably be getting if he hit the open market instead as a 2026 free agent. What are your thoughts on that?
Hey guys, short little break here. Let's talk about Gametime, an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball that makes getting tickets faster and easier. Price on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch with killer last minute deals, all-in prices, views, film receipt, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets and all other kinds of tickets. I have used it myself to go watch WNBA games, and it was fantastic. The view from your seat feature went perfect. It was exactly what it displayed on the app when I got there. I bought them day of the game for a good price. I knew they were a good price because they have the Gametime guarantee. You can get a credit of 110% of the difference if you find cheaper tickets in the same hour section elsewhere. Your purchase is covered with a flexible customer service policy, all in pricing right in the app. So there's total upfront, no surprise fees at checkout. Everything you could want from a ticket purchasing app is there on Gametime. You got to try it yourself. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB and other tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I think so too. What is your? I don't know what your estimated average salary is, but it's like 4 for $80 basically would be that max extension about.
It's basically the exact whatever it is this year. It would be the veteran max extension for this year, even though it wouldn't take place until the following season. Yeah, it starts at 18.1.
Okay,
so he could be already
maybe more than 4 for $80.
So that $40 million tax base cushion already can cut it in half if Nembhard getting that extension.
Yes, I agree with you that if I'm the Pacers, I'm offering him that. I'm not even kidding. I might offer a player option to entice him to take it because I think he's that good, and like that's mid-level money in 3 years, and he's not going to take mid-level money in 3 years. So if that's the easiest way to keep, because next summer they could still decline his team option and make him a restricted free agent. And I haven't looked at the cap space teams for next year ahead of our conversation. So if you're him, the hope would be you just get some massive offer from some team who wants you to start at point guard. But if you're the Pacers, your hope is like, well, let's do the restricted free agency dance and see if we can get you on the deal we offered you last summer. So it might be a bet from both sides a little bit, but I would offer the max extension on the 22nd, and I would do a player option if I could. And yes, that cuts their potential tax base in half, but he's good. He's a starter.
and that is, and one thing that we discussed privately right after the Pacer season ended was, okay, like I would give him that extension, just mainly not just because it can be, considerably less than what he could be getting on the open market, but then when you look into the future and you might need to move on from someone, he could be a player where, and this has been something that's been kind of talked about afterward, like since I kind of brought it up in my Pacers video. What if things change? What if he wants to be a lead guard somewhere else? What if there's just another team willing to give up so much stuff for him? So that helps solve the Pacers issue of like, okay, well, you're moving on from this salary to balance things out in the long term. Maybe you get like a bigger guy that can fit better, and you just, but you have that's just such a good contract. There's so much value in that in case things go that direction. So I think it's a no-brainer. You gotta, if he's willing to accept that now, just lock him in and deal with the financial decisions a little later.
I agree. And so some people who don't understand restricted versus unrestricted could say, oh, he could be a cheap minimum guy next year. And I would say that would be very stupid. That would not be a smart thing for the Pacers to do. You have Wiseman and Brown in there. I just slash them like that. If they're dealing with the tax, there's just no point of even doing the dance, right?
Either way, you can in our minds right now, the Pacers are operating with like 20 million tax, assuming Nemhard below the tax, assuming Nemhard takes his extension. And that brings us to the next. Oh, go ahead.
That brings us to Turner and McConnell.
Yeah, and I think Turner's probably looking at making around the same he's been making, around 20 millish.
Interesting.
Yeah. I would think so. If you look at
you don't think he's looking at Nick Claxton and Isaiah Hartenstein and making mental notes of that?
Well, yeah, but I also think it's very situational. Like what with Hartenstein, I don't think Myles Turner ever quite accomplished the heights of what I don't think Myles Turner accomplished the heights of what Hartenstein just did with the Knicks, and the Thunder they just had to use it or lose it with this cap space. So it's very situational. And then who was the other center who just got paid?
Claxton.
Also, just another thing where the Knicks now, I mean, the Nets, they just had so much money to spend. They just had to, and they had to figure. They gave him I think it's a pretty good contract. Is descending down to 21 million, I believe, in the last year. I don't know if the center market will be quite like that next summer. So as of now, I would say he's definitely going to be at least making around the same. Around that $20 million range. But yeah, I'm sure he gets a little boost from that. I don't think he gets quite to 24-25 million yet. Wow. We'll have to see how things shake out, but at least he's going to be earning the same.
Yeah, I in my head have just penciled in like 3 for 75 at least because of how the center market has shaken out this year. He's a very good fit, right? Like with Siakam, with the Siakam Haliburton team. Tyrese even talked about that on the record. He said in Sacramento, he thought the best kind of center for him was like a Rashawn Holmes screen roll floater guy. And then he got to Indiana. He's like, oh no, it's this guy. It's the guy who can pop too. And Turner had a good postseason until the conference finals. So I think that matters because that's what the Pacers' goals are now. So I have penciled him in for a higher number, assuming he would resign. I just did a show about the future of the center position for the Pacers because it's quietly kind of in a lot of flux. But even if you're right that it's lower than I think, TJ McConnell is now just not a part of the team, and that is, he was like incredible for them for the last month plus playoffs last year. Who knows if that can hold though?
So last thing on Turner, I'll say what Nick Claxton and Hartenstein just got definitely like raised it up, but that tier of center is making a little bit because you got guys like Capella, Pirtle, Jared Allen. They were making 20 million flat, and Turner's basically there. So I'm sure he's going to make a little bit more than that. I'm just not sure if it'll be 25 mil a year. We'll see. You might be right. Definitely somewhere in between 20 to 25. But yeah, then assuming he's brought back, I don't think they could really afford to lose him unless they find another center along the way. Then that you basically have nothing left for TJ McConnell, who's been very important to them, and Isaiah Jackson, who he's also extension eligible too.
No chance. There's just no chance.
Okay, but let me ask you this. Last year, there were a lot of players like Peyton Pritchard, Zeke Naji that signed these very like below mid-level type deals for long years, like 4 years.
Yep.
If Isaiah Jackson was willing to take something like 4 for 28, I don't know. I think the Pacers might just accept that. Like that's like, if there's no options, that's pretty good, like backup center money. It might be worth just accepting that and dealing with the issues with the financial issues later.
It's funny you say that because for years I always said no rookie ever accepts a sub mid-level extension because what's the point, right? Like it's hard. And then Nasir Little was the first guy to ruin that, as you know. And now like a bunch of guys are doing it. And
Yeah.
I still don't really get it. I'm not gonna lie for them. Although like Peyton Pritchard's probably underpaid now, but Zeke Naji and Nasir Little both probably made the right decision to do what they did, for example. So it's possible. And when we talked about this yesterday, I was like, yeah, if he's taking 3 for 15 or what'd you say, 4 for 28, like
Yeah.
maybe you just do it. That's what backup centers make. But they have serious concerns that we're talking about that make that like tough to do through gritted teeth, unless they're getting a for sure he's going to be worth this kind of contract.
Yeah. I just feel like with the Pacers, like they gave Obi Toppin what I consider a great deal. Like I think that's a great contract to give him. And we're talking about what can look like a great contract for Nemhard, and there's an idea what Turner's probably gonna get. And it's I feel like if you can lock some of these guys on what they consider favorable deals, just accept it for now, and then you've got you can work with it later. If it's something they feel they can move later, take it now and deal with it, because it doesn't really help them to not to save money. They're not having any spending power. If they have the mid-level exception, they're probably not going to be using it over the next few years.
Never.
That's where I'm at, where if they can lock these guys right now on what they consider good movable deals down the line, just extend these guys and deal with it later. The only guy, though, that isn't extension eligible is Myles Turner, because he did the renegotiation. He has to wait 3 years. So he's going to go to free agency. So no matter what, the Pacers are going to have to, I guess, get their ducks in a row, figure out before they figure out how they're going to fit Myles Turner.
Yes, they are. And that's where this becomes a discussion is I just don't think they can fit all their good players into the gap between the tax and their salaries that's going to exist next year. And maybe they can. Maybe they pull off some miracle with all these guys and it works out. Maybe they can just squeeze a minimum center in and it's fine, but they might have to do something about it. And that is why I brought something up at the beginning, which is a lot of teams in this spot. Like we can point to Golden State right now. Like they have Kevon Looney and Gary Payton II if they want to just duck the tax, right? And they probably will do that at some point this season, right? That's like one of the most obvious lock trades in the NBA right now. At some point that will happen, right? The Pacers don't have like a super obvious, that's the salary you can just like dump that to somewhere else. Someone else will take it. Maybe like all their salaries are good or rookie scale stuff. And so you have like what I always look for in these spots with teams is like who's making more than what their role says they should make. And even that is hard to come up with somebody. But the two names I would land on if I was not talking about the team I cover would be two young guys that they are betting on being a lot better this season to improve. And that's Jarris Walker and Ben Mathurin. And like if Jarris is not in the rotation, paying him, next year he'd be making 6.6 or a cap hit of 6.6. That for a guy who's not playing, that's cheap. If he is playing, that's awesome. And I would be so hesitant to trade Jarris Walker, but that's reality. Same with Mathurin, who goes up over 9 next year because he would be hitting the 4th year. And so maybe it's them. Maybe it's someone. There's just no one that's just so obvious like this guy doesn't make sense in his role. But if they want to promote those young guys, they have to trade someone who we talked about having a good contract already, like Obi, like a Nemhard extension or something. So that is why this is such an interesting discussion to me is they have the solutions to fix the air quotes problem that they now have are all really hard. Like you have to like make an emotionally challenging trade or a directionally defining trade or give up on someone maybe earlier than you want. And it's not that you did anything wrong to this point. It's just the reality of business in the NBA. And so it's not an easy trade to come up with. It's really challenging to figure out who they would get rid of because all their contracts are good or at least at market value, to me at least.
So as far as Mathurin, I agree with you in the sense that if he's not showing enough, and I guess by next year, like I think this is going to be a very critical time for him to show that he's going to be. I'm sure they want him to be like the starter alongside Tyrese Haliburton, and that was probably why they drafted him. If he's not quite showing that, I could see them moving on, especially because that last year making 9.2 million, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. So he can be a tax casualty as they try to fill out the rest of next year's roster. If Jarris shows enough that he's going to be a rotational player, I think then that makes Obi Toppin more expendable because, then you just have so many of these fours and now, but like we said, we both agree Obi's got this great contract. I think he could start on so many other teams. Very movable. So that's actually, that would help. I think that would help with that, solve that answer a lot where you can get off of Obi's 14 million and Jarris maybe shows that not only is he going to be a rotation player, maybe he'll be able to take over once Siakam starts to decline, which, hopefully that's not for a while. And then the last one, though, is the one I mentioned earlier, which is Nembhard, where you can extend him on this big deal. And if Mathurin does start to show something, then maybe there is something there. But I think that's less likely. I'll just leave it at that.
I would agree with you that is less likely. So just to point at some names because of just how this has gone for the history of time in terms of these moves, assuming that some of this is done with the intent of keeping Turner because they either keep him or lose him for reasons we have talked about. You go to the salaries below him, and the Toppin, Nesmith, McConnell, Mathurin, Walker kind of grouping is where it seems like someone would have to be the casualty, right? So maybe even a combo of those guys for a much cheaper package with picks or with like a young cost-controlled player that maybe isn't something yet but could be something. And that's a hard trade to come up with because it takes a very specific trade partner and return package. Like Denny Avdia's salary would be awesome for the Pacers if they could somehow get it. Probably too late for that now. Isaiah Joe's salary would be awesome for the Pacers if they could somehow get it. Probably too late for that now. But that kind of grouping, because everyone else below that is cheap or on a team-controlled deal, even Walker and Mathurin on team-controlled deals, where it's like it doesn't really help you. Like you're not getting anything by moving their salary. They have no stretch candidates, really, unless Furphy's just like can't even run this season, which doesn't seem like it would make any sense. So it's really hard to come up with the right answer. But I would imagine right now, if you made me pick, that it would be one or two of those five names that would be part of the casualty in some way, whether that's they have to walk, or did I say five names? Yeah, five names. Either they have to let that person walk or they have to figure out a combo trade with some of those guys. But Nesmith is tough because he's very, like, if he's a starting three at 11 million for 3 years, that's incredible. Yeah. Like that helps with the problem.
I was going to say, it's definitely not going to be him. That might be the best contract they have on the entire roster. Like them getting him on that deal changed a lot of things where they're able, because it enabled them being able to just comfortably trade Bruce Brown to get Siakam, and they have an answer at the three for the next 3 years. Like that's, if Nair Nesmith is your starting three, like that, like, I'm sure more teams would kill to have something better, but like that's just such a good, like for him to be your, I guess your fifth guy on offense, like that's a great guy to have. I doubt it's him. Like unless they're getting a significant upgrade that also isn't too expensive, like an Avdia, like you said, I just don't see them moving him. He just helps them so much in so many ways.
Yeah, he's just in that salary range of like the guys that would make sense financially, but I agree with you, is so like if you're a starter level 3 who can kind of defend and can shoot, I mean that's a at least $20 million player in the league now. And they got very fortunate with that extension timing and the fact that he was kind of on the fringe of their expected rotation last year and then had this awesome season. So that is a fantastic contract. So I hope that everyone listening can understand the problem. What would you do? Would you just, that's why I think from right this second, it's July 10th when we're talking, it'll be July 11th when this is out, till the trade deadline, February 6th, right? Is like, that is such a critical time because it's probably the last gasp of time the Pacers can evaluate this whole like, hey, we're really good with young guys era. Maybe they can make it to next summer doing that, but that's the end of the line. So it's a really critical coming 4 or 5 months. And I think that will determine kind of how they proceed from where they are now in this reality.
Yeah, we'll see. I think we got to see how everyone plays out. Just the biggest thing, I think it all starts with Mathurin and Walker. We got to see what they can do. That's really going to determine a lot in terms of what they do. It'll determine their futures, and if they're doing well, it could determine some other guys' futures.
I agree, and it's so weird that their future of their young guys determines how good this ascending team can be, but such is life in the NBA, and that is where the Pacers are. I hope this was interesting to you, Yossi, because this has been the most interesting. As soon as they signed Obi, I was like, oh man, next year's going to be really, I would have done everything they did, but next year's going to be really, really interesting. I think the first kind of step to determining where this goes comes in 11 days when it's Nembhard time. And if we find out that they offered and he declined or however that goes, because then we get a better sense of what he thinks he's worth or if he accepts what he is going to be worth.
Yeah, no, that's another domino that can also, just kind of dictate where things will go as well. But I would anticipate he's going to we'll see. Those reports came out like last month. Things could have changed.
Mark Stein, yeah.
I would guess that, it seems like if he's that it's a big raise. Otherwise, he'd be making $2 million next year. That's you're talking about 9 times in your money instantly. It's a lot. I get it.
So the last thing I'd float to you as a question here is, because we've gone through all this, is there an amount that you would extend McConnell and deal with him later too, like we talked about with Jackson?
I haven't put too much thought into it because out of all these players that we've discussed, he's as good as he is. He's definitely like last priority, or at least kind of like even with Isaiah Jackson. But I like Isaiah Jackson. Like if he can take one of those Nasir Little type deals, like I think you just do it. He's still pretty young. Right now they don't really have another backup center right now. So as far as TJ McConnell, I'm not sure, but I suppose like it's tough because you see right now the point guard market is pretty shaky right now. We still don't know what Tyus Jones is going to get. We are still waiting to see what happens to Spencer Dinwiddie. It hasn't been great for backup guards right now. So I think we need to see how this market shakes out. But I'm guessing he might be looking like if he hits the market should be better next summer. I think the cap barely rising is also playing into things. But I would guess he's probably looking at something below mid-level. And if he's willing to take something like, I guess, around what he's making right now, I think that's good. I think the big question is the years, though.
Agreed.
But I think he's just, to be honest, just kind of like last in the priority in terms of they have like 4 other guys they got to, I think, prioritize first.
The contract comp I used for him would be Gabe Vincent, but it might be 2 years away, so it might be too irrelevant by that point. But he got about $10 million, and that would be a little. He's such an interesting candidate for free agency and extensions because he was clearly very good. How many players peak at 32? Like, what do you do after that happens? Like, what happens now for him, right? Like, I don't know. Huh?
He's 32?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know.
See, it's weird. It's so random that happened in that way.
I think like if you really value him, you extend him, give him more than what he's probably going to make. But they could also, if he goes to free agency, I'm sure they could. If they let him hit free agency, they could probably get him at a number he wants.
Well, the other thing with him is they can do it during the season. So if they could, hey, trade deadline's over, let's do this. There's time to figure it out if they.
What I would do if it was possible, like. They can't do it, but he's the type of guy who would do like the renegotiation, get it like just overpay him this year like they did with Turner last year, and then just get it down like very low, kind of like the Nick Collison one. I think the Thunder did him like got him to like 10 million or something like that, and then he started making minimum money right after.
Yeah, his 40%. He made one. I think he had 1 year over the minimum with the 40% dip, and then was back down to it. Genius. Okay. I hope everybody understands why this is such a pivotal year now, where the Pacers go, how they add the next pieces to their team. And Yossi is the perfect person to help me break it down because he is the cap guy. Capsheets.com is the way to go. I'll put his YouTube channel for those watching on YouTube in the comments below. Long descriptions, good cap stuff on every team. His Knicks video about the aprons went crazy. Everybody was entrenched in that after the Mikal Bridges trade. Also, Yossi, we got a signing while we were talking. Saddiq Bey, 3 years, $20 million to the Wizards. I love it. Good job, Wizards. That's a good idea.
Just another one of those. Hey, like sign a good player for just like a normal amount that contract's going to age really well. Once
He's out for a year, so
yeah.
yeah, it'll be tricky to see. I bet there's a partial guarantee on the third year because he's going to miss an entire year, but that's a guess. Really interesting stuff. Yoshi, this was great. I've plugged your stuff, but you do it. You tell people where you are and all the many places they can find your wonderful work covering the salary cap.
Yeah, all my salary cap sheets are on capsheets.com for each team. They're updated as moves happen. I've got my YouTube channel, just my name, Yossi Goslin NBA, and very salary cap centric stuff there. And then you can follow me on Twitter, Yossi Goslin, for all sorts of reactions as transactions happen.
And specific details on contracts, which maybe I'm the only one who appreciates, but I appreciate specific details on deals because they always come in a little lied to us. Highly recommended follow. Check out his work again. I'll put it in descriptions and things of the sort. Tomorrow, it's Summer League. Finally, it's here. We're going to talk Summer League. Pacers players of note, starters, Furphy, Jarris Time, can Ben Shepherd do other stuff. Looking forward to that. Hope you guys are too. Till then, everybody, check out Yossi's work and have a wonderful day.